Welcome to today's KMWorld webinar, brought to you by SearchBlox. I'm Mary D. Ojala, Conference Program Director, Information Today, Inc. I will be the moderator for today's broadcast. Our presentation today is titled Harnessing Intelligent Content Services. Now, before we get started, I want to explain how you can be a part of this broadcast. There will be a question and answer session. If you have a question during the presentation, just type it into the question box provided and click on the submit button. We will try to get to as many questions as possible, but if your question has not been selected during the show, you will receive an email response to it within a few days. Plus, all viewers will be entered to win a $100 Amazon gift card just for viewing today's webinar. And now to introduce our speaker for today, John Lewis, Chief Knowledge Officer, SearchBlox. And now let me pass the event over to John Lewis, CKO, SearchBlox. Go ahead, John.
Thank you, Mary D. I'm John Lewis with SearchBlox. Thanks for joining us today for this topic, Harnessing Intelligent Content Services. Quick overview of today. We're going to look at this idea that today's organizations are teeming with diverse types of content and different types of users, use cases, and requirements. Through automation, integration, and AI, intelligent content services are building upon the foundation of ECM systems to facilitate better information access, sharing, and collaboration. In this webinar, you will learn how unified search brings multiple content repositories together with one search for end users, how pretext NLP automatically makes your content findable using NLP, and how intelligent search goes beyond traditional search to produce value from findability. Before we jump in, I had a quick question for you. What is the most used hyperlink on the internet? The answer is the back button. But why do people hit the back button and leave our website? Here's a short list. It's usually due to one of these: the page loading speed's too slow, or the content's not engaging, the look and feel's not engaging, and more importantly, what we're finding also, it's now due to an inability to search and find answers. So that brings us to a quick page about us. We're SearchBlox. We've been providing search solutions since 2003 for over 600 customers globally, providing secure enterprise solutions for financial services, healthcare, government, and technology. Listed in the KMWorld 100 companies that matter most in knowledge management, listed in the KMWorld AI Top 50, listed in Gartner's Magic Quadrant for Insight Engines, and also the IDC Market Glance for conversational AI technologies. And here's a quick glance at some of those companies in those four sectors that rely on SearchBlox. With that, what are we hearing from customers? Businesses want search solutions where setup is easy, security is solid, support's available, and of course, search is advanced. Let's take a look at each one of these in more detail. Setup really means faster time to value. So the idea is, ingest and search 70 different file formats in 40 languages out of the box. Ingest and search data out of the box with over 300 built-in data connectors. Deploy search in your data center or in the cloud, or optionally use a fully managed search service with little to no customer resources required. Let's look at security. It's about ability to integrate with existing authentication and authorization systems, security at the user level, index level, and document level, and encryption at rest, in transit, and in use, and still searchable. And support, of course, multiple levels of support, online training, 24/7 platinum level supports available, fixed price professional services if needed, and again, fully managed services. And that takes us to search. It's really about solving key content challenges. And today we're going to look at the content challenges of content silos, content findability, and content discovery. Content silos is really hearing someone say something like this: help me when I have to look in multiple sources. They might say it differently. They might not say it at all. You might just be observing someone having to go to a lot of different places to make a decision. Content findability is about hearing someone say something like this: help me when I know what I'm looking for, but I still need help. So that's really when they would say, I know it's in there. I just was told it's in there. It's in this repository. I know exactly what I'm looking for, but I can't find it. Why? And thirdly, content discovery is when you hear someone say something like this: help me when I don't know what I'm looking for. So that would be when they would say, I didn't know how to spell it. I didn't know you wanted me to call it that. I didn't know when I ordered this, I should also have ordered that. I didn't know this was on sale. Why didn't you tell me? So content discovery, content findability, content silos are three really key content challenges. And we're going to look at those challenges and some solutions today. With content silos, we're going to look at unified search, what that means, and then specifically dive into a particular solution called smart FAQs when the silos are FAQs themselves. With content findability, we're going to look at the solution of relevance tuning in a way you may have not seen before, and dive into something called pretext, where we automatically fix content so that it'll align with your expected relevance tuning. And with content discovery, we're going to talk about the solution of intelligent search and the 4 stages that make that happen. With that, let's jump right into unified search. Unified search really ultimately ends up being something about better decisions faster. It's looking at different systems, bringing it all together, but also security integration behind the scenes, a unified user experience, but also a unified relevance ranking. So we're talking about content from different structured sources, like databases, content from different unstructured sources, content management systems, and so forth, and content from different file types. It could be that you're not just looking at web documents, you're looking at Office documents and PDFs, or maybe even a video file where you want to know which video file had this specific phrase that you heard. And also it has to do with content from different content types. And today I want to focus on this problem that we're seeing of the content of FAQs and how they're held in silos, the problem it creates, and how to solve for that. The reality of FAQs, I think most would agree, is that providing answers to FAQs can increase conversions for sales, mitigate service calls for support, and increase productivity for employees. The reality, though, is traditionally information retrieval systems were designed to find documents, not answers in documents. So specific answers in those documents, whether it's a product document, process document, or policy document, the longer documents, the specific answers to questions are buried within those long documents, not easily found. So we collectively created a workaround strategy. We thought, okay, it wants a document. Let's create a document that only contains one answer. So the title of the document would be the question that we think people are asking. So when we search, we'll find that document. And in that document, we'll have the answer. That's how this all started. And we've moved on from there, still in a silo, trying to create little answers because information retrieval systems were designed to find documents, not answers. This has led to the idea of it's manageable really only for the most frequent questions. You can't think of and handle all of the questions you're going to get buried within all of these documents. So it's manageable only with the most frequent questions, and the FAQ list was born. That's led to some unintended consequences of this FAQ strategy, and it's really become unacceptable, leading us full cycle back to this original question. Are you sure with the current AI that the systems can't find answers and documents? We'll take a look at that answer in a few slides. What I want to do now is just take a look at these unintended consequences of this FAQ strategy. Let's first look at the reality of frequency when we say frequently asked. Manually produced FAQs are created based on many assumptions, really, for the frequency of specific questions. Then people ask questions differently, so some answers are not found. FAQ answers rarely address more than 10% of user questions, as we see in the diagram here. Related to the long tail of search, we also have a long tail of question frequency. And focusing on the top 10% or so of the questions still leaves a lot of questions unanswered. And those individually are not asked very often, but collectively are more questions and answers that could have been handled by FAQs if it was using something like a smart FAQ feature. So instead of frequency guesses before searches, smart FAQs cover the entire range of content and provide analytics afterwards. So we're still talking about the idea of frequency, but rather than guessing up front what the frequency most frequent are, we're reporting after the fact, after looking through all of the content. And I use the term guessing, knowing that most of us do some research ahead of time and maybe ask the call center what the top questions are. But there's a lot of assumptions in this approach. For example, in a sales process, someone's just starting to look and browse. They're not ready to click buy now. They're not ready to talk to someone, and they're not finding what they're looking for. They'll go somewhere else. And we haven't captured all of the questions that we think we should have when we use this approach. So let's take a look at the reality of duplicate content. Manually produced FAQs usually copy snippets of information from a larger document. Duplicate content is difficult to keep in sync. End users find duplicate content, and worse than that, they find competing content when they are out of sync. So instead of manually duplicating content, smart FAQs automatically create questions and answers and keeps content in sync. And when I say creates questions and answers, just to be clear, this is not a rogue bot that's going to insult customers, as we remember a few years back when customers started trying that technology out. This really finds statements of fact that's in your content. So it's not going to be making up anything. It's capturing factual information and generating the reverse way of saying it as a question and generating the FAQ list automatically. Okay, let's take a look at the reality of dead ends. Manually produced FAQs are typically written as the short answer, out of context with the larger picture, producing dead end logic. So here's a real example. The billing process for a bank includes mailing customers a billing statement with a pre-printed envelope that includes the bank's mailing address. When customers ask for the mailing address, it means other processes have broken, yet they are provided just the answer to their question. What's the mailing address? Here's the mailing address. You can think about some examples in your organization like this, where we get tunnel vision around thinking about the top questions and we just answer them simply. So instead of manually creating FAQ snippets of dead-end logic, smart FAQs always provide contextual links back into the richer content. And just to elaborate, if you want a human in the loop, you can be notified when this larger document is changed in some way to review, to make sure that the FAQ still aligns with it before it's reactivated into the FAQ list. So what is the new reality? With the advancements in AI, information retrieval systems are designed to find documents and answers. So we can change the word not answers to and answers, giving us that increased conversions, mitigated service calls, and increased productivity. So let's take a look at some comparisons here around manual FAQs and smart FAQs. First, let's look at a list around manual FAQs. Of course, they're created manually and managed manually. That's really the problem, is managing them and getting things out of sync. It's based on suspected question frequency. FAQs get out of sync with document content. They provide dead-end answers presented separately from search results, usually if you've spent any time clicking and expanding. And search managers do not always have access or permission to change answers. Content comes in from a lot of places, and there's a need to quickly change something, and that's out of the control of the person managing search. So let's do a quick comparison to smart FAQs. It says it's for manually and automatically created FAQs. Wait a minute, I thought we were talking about automatically created FAQs. Well, a smart FAQ system should also allow you to import your manually created FAQs, the ones you've been working on for years and honing exactly the way that you want to answer it. It's working well for you, and you know it's going to get asked a lot. So you would want to have an integrated solution and maybe have the smart FAQs pick up the long tail of questions. It is based on the entire range of content. Answers are kept in sync with document content to provide precise answers and contextual links back into the larger content. It's integrated with search results, and search managers have the capability to change answers based on administration permissions. This really is a paradigm shift. Maybe not quite this dramatic, but we used to think of the atom as the smallest material object. And after thinking about it differently, a paradigm shift, we're now talking about subatomic particles. And the document was the smallest searchable object. So it's a paradigm shift to think in terms of something smaller than the document being recognized and pulled out using smart FAQs. Let's take a look at some examples now. Here's an internet search result using Google, and it says, what is a router? Normally, we got used to seeing search results with a list of links to URLs and documents. And now before we get to that, before we scroll down and see that, we're seeing specific questions and answers pulled out for us. So people are expecting this type of interface now with questions, specific answers to questions before the links to documents and URLs. Here's another example from Google. I just typed the question, what is FAQ? And the first question that comes back automatically generated says, what is the FAQ means? Probably not the way a human would write that, but we can tell that at least Google has decided to make the trade-off decision of the value of pulling specific answers out of content over sometimes not being worded precisely correct. Now, in your organization, something like Smart FAQ would allow you to go through and make any tweaks to the way things are worded before you push it into production. Let's take a look at some examples produced from Smart FAQs. Here it's looking to just say extend Wi-Fi, probably thinking in terms of a verb, how to do it, and finding even a noun, that is, there's something called extension and extenders, and it tells you how to do it, or what if you want one, how to set it up. I'm not ready to do that yet, but I see that there's a link to a document that has videos. Probably my best starting place on this one. Here's a search that says reset password. And looks like the first one is probably my best shot. How can I reset the password? The default password is password. Click login and let me try that. So I don't need to dig into large documents, read through them. The answers are right there. If I want to dig in and find more detailed content, I can do that. And when I click just to open it up, that's being logged. When I click on a document, that's being logged. If I click a plus, or I would say a thumbs up or a thumbs down, as far as how well I think this answer is working, that's being logged. So the analytics are going to be showing us, how well each of these are doing and continually learning over time. Here's a search for payment methods. How many payment methods are on a file? If you only have one payment method, you're not going to be able to remove it until you add a new one. Let me click the next one. Okay, here's how you can update it on the account page. So usually we're finding with 5 FAQ, the top 5 that just automatically come back. There's sort of the collection of those FAQs sort of help you see the bigger picture and answer your question without diving into it any deeper. Here's a question for a phone number. And I click this one. How do you verify your phone number? If you don't want to verify your phone number or even prompted, you can verify later. Okay. So there's information about, what you can do or what you can do later. And then that leads me to this one. This is saying prescription drug coverage. So this is a different site we're on that we're indexing. It gives me an idea right off the bat about the price ranges. And the coverage, I can click on the document and go in and get more detail. And of course, give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down if I like this answer, and look at other FAQ. And finally, here's an example I thought was interesting, just searching for personal information. Plenty of good information that's coming back, framed as FAQs. This one is saying, what is not a secure method of communication or transmission of personal information? And the answer that it pulled out of content is that, please note that regular email is not a secure method. And one of the things that we're realizing is that this is one of the things that automatically generated FAQ is doing that we see happening more than when humans write FAQs. And that is to say that this idea of what not to do, to not use your mobile device or app, you have to do this in the browser, what not to do at this time. And in this case, not to use email. That we don't generally write FAQ as humans around bringing out the idea of not. And yet it's interesting that AI is doing that and giving us a little bit better picture of understanding at the FAQ level. So a quick summary how smart FAQs work. It crawls content sources across the organization. You get to decide where. NLP automation generates a related list of content-rich questions. Results are tuned for relevancy based on the user engagements, the clicks, and the thumbs up and down. Users can access precise answers that come back, as we saw, and contextually relevant information if we click the links going back into the document it was found. Then insights and analytics show what users are actually searching for, which lets us add, edit, or remove content to improve user experience as a continuous improvement feedback loop. So who is this great for? Organizations with multiple client touchpoints, help desk, knowledge center, email support, self-service, chats, bots, etc. Product owners who want to automatically generate training materials for customers and internal teams. Marketing and sales leaders who want to keep complex product information up to date and readily available without relying on technical team capacity. Support contact centers looking to provide better, faster information for customers, and HR, communications, and internal departments to answer questions about processes. Okay. That takes us to the next challenge with content around content findability and the solution of relevance tuning, and specifically pretext as a solution. Here we're getting a sneak peek behind the scenes, looking at the console of SearchBlox, making changes to content. And in the past, we normally thought of a particular way to tune content for relevancy without thinking about the type of content that it is. So here we see that this lets us automatically select a particular template that's already been created based on the type of content. And you can think about it this way. If you have a collection of news content, well, then the recency of the date it was created is going to be a weight that you would want to bring up in that relevancy. That would be different than, let's say, a knowledge-based question, because the answer of how to do something that was created and put in place 2 years ago is as relevant for how to do it if it hasn't been changed as an answer that's been put in place yesterday for how to do something else. So the weights matching that document for the title and description would be more important than the recency. So these are templates that are already created that are available to use, and as well as easily editable. You can edit them, even add new ones, and look at specific search terms, and even manually make a few adjustments before content goes into production. So that's how relevancy works in SearchBlox. But as well as you might go about doing this and saying, I think this is an area where the title is very important, looking at, let's say, Office documents. The problem would be if there's no titles in those documents. And that's typically the case of what we're finding. Let's take a look at this process, how normally you would look at documents coming in, search engine would crawl that, extract information, merge it into an index, and then it becomes searchable. Well, there's a difference between good content and good content findability. Content authors do not always think about how to make their content findable. There's not enough time or budget to manually change existing content, and there may be no access permissions to change content from multiple sources. We can automatically add metadata to increase findability without making changes to the original content, just making changes to the copy that's coming in. So let's add a step to this traditional process where pretext NLP is looking at the documents as they come in and automatically generating, after looking at the content of the document, generating titles, descriptions for podcasts, looking at audio to text, looking at auto tagging, OCR, keyword generation, sentiment analysis, and more. We'll look at a fuller list in a little bit, but this will also let custom processors work. If you happen to work in a company with your own data scientists that can come up with better pipelines for their particular situations, they would be able to plug that in here as well. Let's take a look at an example of what we're talking about. You might have documents that have a missing title or a template name or a date or something like that as you look through a lot of documents in your system, and you search for something and it's a poor search result or even nothing found. Now, as the documents come in, applying pretext, it's going to create a title that sounds like that's the best title for this document after it reads it. So now when we search for the same thing, we're actually starting to get results. In this case, we're going to add a topic. Usually missing, people don't think of adding the topic to the content, so we'll add a topic as it comes in. And then when we search, not only do we get search results, we start getting some filters, topic-based, that allow us to drill down based on the topic. And one more example, we usually never think of looking at a document and thinking, is this generally a positive or a negative statement about something? So that's something that could automatically be added and useful for content if it's related to information coming in from customers about a product, or maybe even on a project team, how the project's going as an early warning sign. So in summary, this idea of pretext NLP generates metadata looking at the content on its way in and can automatically produce a title, description, topic, sentiment, or keywords, and extract names of organizations, products, people, locations, and geopolitical economy terms. And of course, this list will grow as AI continues to evolve. That takes us to the third content challenge called content discovery. Help me when I don't know what I'm looking for. And the solution is intelligent search, and how 4 stages of that search work together to make this happen. We normally think of search as typing something in and getting a list back. But with intelligent search, the first stage is called before typing. Before you even type anything, something's happening. It's providing suggested searches just by clicking. And it could be based on promotional, popularity, and personalization ideas. The second stage is during typing. So as I'm starting to type, it's already giving me some suggestions for promotional, popularity, and personalization. And then when I'm finished typing, after typing, I can start to get specific answers or narrow the options down for filters and rankings. And then fourth is the stage of after selecting. So there's continuous improvement by looking at what you're clicking on, how far down was it that you had to go before you clicked on it, and so forth. So let's take a look at this in a little more detail. This is stage 1. Before typing, just by clicking the mouse into the search bar, top suggestions appear. Promotions, popularity, or personalization can drive suggestions. So we see some questions popping up that could have been based on, these are popular questions or things that we know are coming into the call center that we want to promote to help people answer them here. This is during typing. Smart Suggest goes beyond standard autocomplete capabilities, provides options as you type related to content, promotions, popularity, and personalization. So the point that needs to be made here is it's related to content. So every one of these lines that are coming into select to go find content are based on content that's actually there. Autocomplete, if you're familiar with that, is normally based on dictionary terms to help you spell it and required to be spelled at the very beginning of your search term. In this case, this person really was not even looking for influenza. This is under the category, help me when I don't know what I'm looking for. They remembered that it was part of another term they had forgotten on the 4th line, and this is how they were able to find it. And then in addition to this, there's something we have called Visual Suggest to provide at a glance icons to help you quickly narrow your search to specific types of content. So as you're typing, we see that RICH could be part of a location or a product name or in a particular document type or even a person. So if you already know that part of it, as you're seeing a bunch of things listed out as you're typing, it allows you to find what you're looking for more quickly. And then there's after typing. Intelligent search provides more relevant results based on content type, and filters to narrow the list are produced automatically or manually. Now we're to stage 4, after selecting. Intelligent search does not stop working after providing search results. You can get top searches, search result clicks, suggestions, the 0 result searches. When they found nothing, you would want to know when that happened. Featured result clicks are listed and so forth. But in addition to analytics, what's really interesting are insights. I think of these as not just a list, but multidimensional lists. This one is looking at queries related to URLs clicked with the click count and click position. This one's looking at the URLs for optimization, the total clicks versus average position of the link in the search results. So if a particular link is getting clicked more often than others, regardless of what search term is finding it, but yet it's found on the second page of search results, for an example, you would want to know that. It makes it very actionable for making improvements. Here's the URLs clicked related to the queries with the click count and click position. And then trends showing not just totals, but trends over time for the query or the URL. And some customers are able to use this to find out, for example, that during the week, versus on the weekend. So professionals versus homeowners looking for different things, call things differently, and want slightly different products. As part of continuous improvement, there's an optional A/B testing. You can compare featured results for new products, promotions, compare the search results tuning variables that we talked about, see how they're doing, search results manual positioning, and a whole lot more. So this is something that, again, is part of the continuous improvement process for intelligent search. And one of the things I've mentioned a few times here is personalization. I wanted to be clear around this. Personalization is not personal. It predicts a user's persona from their query, what they're typing in and looking for. So no PII is required for this. And it works for both anonymous or registered users. So if you happen to be in an organization and we know what particular department you work in and the documents that you need, then that would be additional information to help narrow it down and automatically help you find what you're looking for. So with all of that, I wanted to spend a little time showing you some examples of what all of this ends up looking like at some real sites. And there's a lot of flexibility in the features that people pick and choose and want to use on their website, depending on their customers and what they're trying to accomplish. And even the UI, the way that they decide to represent these features. So we'll look at a few of these examples in the financial services, healthcare, government, and technology sectors. So here's a financial service site, and we see where Smart Suggest is working as we're typing in. And after we get our search results back, we're seeing a combined view here. We're getting related searches. So this idea of help me when I don't know what I'm looking for, because I didn't realize that people that look for this for some reason are also interested in some of these other things. It's related in some way. So it gives me a place to start by looking at that list. Another financial services site. We see Smart Suggest working as we're typing for personalization and also popularity on the same menu. Okay, here's a healthcare site example using Smart Suggest. And this is a site that has a lot of very long, complicated terms. So this happens to be, Smart Suggest happens to be a very useful tool as they're typing in terms and looking for different tests. And another healthcare example, this is a filter by keywords. So after you've typed in a search, they're looking at specific terms that describe or have been identified with these documents to continue drilling down. This is a government site. So just searching for security, you're seeing some documents that come back. It's fastest to drill down into the results using several types, including by topic and also by office. So this is an interesting way of thinking about how content is used, where it's being used, the offices that use documents related to this search. So here's another government site. This is looking at Smart Suggest as you're typing, and then related searches after you complete typing and getting some results back to continue to find out some things that you maybe didn't know that you knew or needed to find out, other related things to what you're looking for. And we're going to look at a few examples in the technology sector. This one's using Smart Suggest as we're typing, and fastest based on content areas. This is an e-commerce site. This is using Smart Suggest as we're typing. And here we see, I mentioned Visual Suggest a while back. It's being used to call out bestsellers as a feature on this website. This is using the tabbed user interface template that we have as a particular interface that is a way of automatically organizing results. This is promoted result. A promoted result is just saying if they look for something like this, I want to automatically put either text or a picture up. And here they're searching for the term mesh. So from a personalization standpoint, because we mainly used it to define a persona based on what they're looking for, that this was identified as a sales persona. And so this particular promoted result came up based on that search term, in addition to the information they're looking for. And finally, one last one as an example to look at. This is, in comparison to the last one, this is a promoted result for password. And personalization is identifying password as a search term that's more like a service persona than a sales persona, and bringing up this promoted result, how to find your model number and other detailed information that you may need, as well as recommended searches that are coming up as well. Okay, with that, we've got an idea of how this works and seen real examples for 3 key content challenges: the content silos, content findability, and content discovery. And solutions, in general solutions and very detailed, specific, and maybe new ones for you, looking at unified search, but specifically smart FAQs, relevance tuning, and then specifically pretext for automatically adding metadata, and intelligent search, the 4 stages and how that works. So we're SearchBlox. We have enterprise search, site search, e-commerce search, platinum support, and also fully managed enterprise search, and a product line around the AI product, Search AI, looking at smart FAQs, pretext, smart suggest, answers, personalization, and chatbot. I'm John Lewis with SearchBlox. Thanks for joining us today to talk about harnessing intelligent content services. Okay, back to you, Mary D.
Well, thank you, John. And now let's turn to questions from our viewers. Let's see here. You mentioned that relevance templates can be changed depending on our specific documents. How hard is it to make these kinds of modifications behind the scenes?
Okay, great. Yeah, great question. And I think that in general, when you see the results of something that works really well, it's always a great question to say, what does it take to do this? Do I need programmers and AI people on the team? So I think it's a great and a fair question. The simple answer is it's as easy as clicking and sliding, clicking and moving a slider. Just saying, okay, I'm looking at our specific content and a specific search term before it goes into production. If I want to start with a template and then saying, okay, let me see what matters most. Is this really about finding the titles on this collection, or descriptions are not even there, so that wouldn't help? Or maybe this is a collection where people have added keywords to the content about the topics that it's already about. So maybe that's work that's already been done. So I want to bring up the weight of that to make the relevance work better. Or maybe it's really like a news type of collection. So the modified date when it was created would be more interesting as a filter. I would just slide that to the right on that particular control to bring that up. So it really is just looking at it and thinking about what's important that would affect relevancy, and just moving sliders.
Relevancy has always been an issue with search. But let me see here. Is there data on how smart FAQs improve business metrics like the Net Promoter Score?
Yeah, well, I agree that that's a business growth score. So the business growth is related to customer experience, and I agree with that the business growth is related to customer experience. That's a great question. So I also think that finding answers with a tool like Smart FAQ will positively affect that score. So I think a great correlation question. Right now, Smart FAQ is a brand new feature that we're just rolling out. So we don't have that kind of operational data right now, but hope to report on it next year.
Okay, so you're still learning. That's great. This is sort of a related question that came in from a viewer. How much content or frequency of queries is required to make such a system economically appropriate?
Okay. Would you mind reading that one more time?
Sure. How much content or frequency of queries is required to make such a system economically appropriate?
Economically appropriate. I'm guessing that this question is coming from, it could be from a sample size, or maybe the idea of AI requiring some modeling and a certain size. But different types of AI function differently. One of the things about this particular models that are used with Smart FAQ is that they're already modeled to find, you could say, fact-based statements in content, and that's already modeled, and there's not a lot of difference between domains or amount of content that's related to answering that. So I would say basically out of the box cost is the answer.
I guess you could also reword that question to how much content or frequency of queries is required to determine relevancy before you start making modifications to your relevance templates.
Right, and that's why it's helpful in cases where we see where there's already existing data. So if you already have a search engine, you already know what the top searches are, you already know the shape of your content, then you can start with pre-built templates and start with that and see how well they're doing in comparison to what you're looking for. And then the other point is, if it's not really affecting it, it's probably because the weights that you're assigning don't have anything to weigh it against. It's saying the titles in these Word and PDF documents is going to be important, but there aren't any titles there because people aren't really thinking about that when they're storing their content. Something like when you're bringing in pretext as it's coming in to automatically look at documents and assign a title that's related to it, then bringing that in would affect it.
Speaking of pretext, we do have a question about that. With pretext, are you saying that all of my internal Office documents that don't have a title or other properties can be added automatically?
Yes, the short answer.
Okay, on to the next one. No, go ahead.
I'm saying, and the long answer is yes. Isn't that cool? So, right.
You must have an even longer answer than that, John.
Yeah. So, I mean, yes, it does, and it can look at some things that we hadn't really thought about, not just documents, but video or audio. Just to say, as it's coming in, you can pull the text out of that and find what you're looking for in those as well. So, across the board, different types of content. This is working for a lot of people right now. That's a feature that's been in place for a little while now.
I think we might have to redefine the word document to include things like video. We seem to be using the word document to include many formats that we never used to think of as being a document.
Agreed. Yeah.
I have a very KME kind of question here. FAQs are often pulled from explicit knowledge. What's the best way to create FAQs from tacit knowledge? And I guess I'd add into that, is this something that your smart FAQs are already doing?
That's a great question. Looking at, as you say, from a KM standpoint, what is explicit in a document, what's implicit? Normally, when you're trying to get to just a tacit knowledge. Usually you're interviewing experts, and that may be captured in video. So that would be a case where if you have videos of experts describing, here's when I do this, okay, and you type that in, and you've used something like pretext to pull the text out of the videos, that would be the way to find that.
Oh, that's a very interesting concept. I like that. I'll go back to saying that's cool. Let's see, what else do we have here? What about getting actionable insights from multiple documents rather than just getting a list of documents that are maybe relevant? So actionable insights from multiple documents.
Yeah, I think that's usually the case, is that the actionable insights are usually it's an aggregate number, an aggregate thing that's happening across queries or across documents. So it may narrow down to one in some rare cases, but usually it's an aggregate insight that you would find in the insight area.
Makes sense. Okay, let's see. We use autocomplete in our search engine now. How different is Smart Suggest for setting it up and for the users?
Okay, good. I mean, if you're used to autocomplete, you kind of get it, the usefulness of that. As far as setting it up, it's just a matter of having it installed, so that as it's indexing content as it's coming in, it's automatically creating that capability so that it's based on the content. And then for end users, it's helpful for spelling, of course, as autocomplete is for spelling. But for autocomplete, it's usually going to work off the first term you're typing in, and then it stops working. It's not part of any part of the term that you're typing in the full query. And the real problem, the way I describe it, is really it's based on a dictionary lookup. The autocomplete helps you with spelling, but it's a dictionary lookup, not really knowing if that content's even in your repository. I always say that it's kind of if it's helping me find that word and spell it, and then I click it and it says sorry, not found. It's a bad customer experience. It's like a waiter suggesting the apple pie for dessert because it's on the menu without first checking to see that there's any apple pie in the kitchen, that it's actually there. So so that's the customer experience that that would be the main difference I think you'd see within users. It's actually content based on the content, what's there. So when you click it, it doesn't have to be the first term, and it will take you to content that it's finding.
Yeah. May I confess that I sometimes use autocomplete on Google to check spelling? And I'll bet other people do the same thing.
That's a good use case. And whatever other document spell check you're using, that tells you something about that.
Exactly. So earlier in your presentation, you mentioned the fact that you can do all this in 40 languages. So were you talking about human languages like English, French, German, etc., or were you talking about technical software languages like COBOL, JCL, Hix, Adabas, etc.?
Okay, yeah, human languages, right. Yep, good question, though. Yep.
With your 40 languages, can you handle the various types of scripts like you see with Chinese or Arabic or Thai?
Yeah, I think that there's, I don't have the 40 list right in front of me, but I think all the major languages are there.
Okay. Of course, if it's your language, it's major, isn't it? Okay. Let's see. I think we are just about out of time here. So no, let me move on to this one. The search provided by Microsoft has improved a lot and continues to do so, including its use of AI. So how much more do we really need outside Office 365 if the content is well indexed?
Yeah, I mean that's a great question and a fair question. Whatever, if it's Office, if you're looking at 365, or if you're looking at Drupal, whatever content management system or document systems that you're going to start with, they usually come with a search capability, and
Mm-hmm.
it's usually they have gotten better, and that's a fair statement. The first question comes up when you start to realize that most mid to large organizations start to have content in more than one place,
Sure.
and the idea of unified search becomes important all of a sudden. A search that can work across all kinds of different places, including to the point I made earlier about finding structured information. It could be that you're doing your job and you're finding documents in 365, but then another database that has specific information related to decisions you're trying to make is also related to
Mm-hmm.
searches that you're making. It's not a document. You wouldn't think of it that way. I'm just going to search for documents. Then I'm going to open this application to do my job, and I'm looking for this term because
Sure.
it's related to this project that I was on. And that's generally how, when you picture someone's workflow as a knowledge worker, what they have to do. So as soon as you start to realize that these have gotten better, they basically searches that work with the system, the document system that you have. But when you really look at the productivity and workflow of having a unified search across all the systems that a worker needs to have access
Mm-hmm.
to, that starts to change the equation.
Great. Well, that is all the time we have for questions today. And we apologize that we were unable to get to all your questions. But as I stated earlier, all questions will be answered via email. And I would like to thank our speaker today, John Lewis, Chief Knowledge Officer, SearchBlox. If you would like to review this event or send it to a colleague, please use the same URL that you used for today's event. It will be archived for 90 days. Plus, you will receive an email with the URL to view the webinar once the archive is posted. If you would like a PDF of the deck, go to the handout section once the archive is live. And just for participating in today's event, you could win this $100 Amazon card. The winner will be announced on May 31st. We will reach out via email if you are selected as this month's winner. Thank you again for joining us.